Elliot Carter's alarm blared at 6:30 a.m., but he hit snooze 3 times before finally dragging himself out of bed. The clock now read 7:15, a full 15 minutes later than his usual wake-up time. His mind was still foggy from the late-night strategy meeting that had stretched until midnight. As the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, Elliot was used to juggling countless responsibilities, but being a single dad added another layer of chaos to his already hectic life. He shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his tired eyes, and found his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sitting at the table with her bowl of cereal. She looked up at him, her big brown eyes wide with curiosity. "Dad, you're gonna be late again," she said matter-of-factly. "Not today, Lil," Elliot replied, forcing a smile as he poured himself a cup of coffee. He glanced at the clock again. Time was slipping away faster than he could catch it. He grabbed Lily's backpack from its hook by the door, barely noticing that it felt lighter than usual. There was no time to double-check anything, not the homework folder, not the lunchbox, and certainly not the school schedule. "Come on, kiddo, we've got to go," he called over his shoulder, grabbing his car keys and briefcase. Lily hopped off her chair, leaving half her cereal untouched, and followed him outside. The morning air was crisp and the streets were quiet except for the occasional hum of passing cars. Elliot drove quickly, weaving through traffic while mentally running through his packed agenda for the day. Meetings, calls, deadlines. It all swirled in his head like a storm cloud. When they arrived at what Elliot thought was Oak Ridge Academy, he gave Lily a quick hug and told her to have a great day. She nodded, though there was a flicker of hesitation in her expression. But before she could say anything, the bus monitor ushered her aboard with the other kids. Elliot didn't notice her uncertainty. He was too busy rushing back to his car, already dialing his assistant to confirm the first meeting of the day. What Elliot failed to realize was that in his exhaustion and rush, he'd made a critical mistake. Instead of dropping Lily off at her regular school, he'd sent her to Maplewood Elementary, a small public school several miles away. It wasn't until hours later, when his phone buzzed with a voicemail from Oak Ridge, asking why Lily hadn't shown up, that the truth began to sink in. For now, though, Elliot remained blissfully unaware. Back at the office, he dove headfirst into work, oblivious to the fact that his little girl was navigating an entirely unfamiliar environment. And somewhere across town, Lily stepped off the bus and walked into a world that wasn't hers, but one that would soon change both their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. Lily stepped off the bus, her heart pounding as she looked around at the unfamiliar school. Maplewood Elementary was nothing like Oak Ridge Academy. The building was smaller, the playground equipment looked older, and the kids running around seemed louder and more carefree than her usual classmates. She clutched her backpack tightly, feeling out of place but unsure what to do. "Are you new here?" a friendly voice asked behind her. Lily turned to see a boy with messy hair and a gap-toothed grin. He held a soccer ball under one arm and tilted his head curiously. I don't know," Lily replied hesitantly. "I think there might have been a mistake." The boy shrugged. "Well, come on, we're going inside. You can sit in my class, if you want." Before Lily could protest, he grabbed her hand and led her toward the entrance. Inside, the hallways buzzed with energy. Kids laughing, teachers calling out instructions, and the faint smell of chalk filling the air. It felt so different from the polished silence of Oak Ridge. Despite her nerves, Lily couldn't help but notice how warm and welcoming everything seemed. She ended up in a classroom labeled Ms. Harper's class. The teacher, a young woman with curly auburn hair and a bright smile, greeted everyone warmly. When she noticed Lily standing uncertainly by the door, she walked over. "Hi there. Are you joining us today?" Lily nodded shyly. I think so. My dad dropped me off here this morning, but I'm not sure if it's the right school." Ms. Harper's brow furrowed slightly, but she quickly masked her confusion with a reassuring smile. "Don't worry about that for now. Why don't you take a seat? We're working on some fun art projects today." As the day went on, Lily found herself surprisingly comfortable. Ms. Harper, whose real name was Claire, had a way of making every student feel valued. She encouraged creativity, listened patiently to their stories, and even joined in their laughter during group activities. For the first time in weeks, Lily forgot about missing her mom or wishing her dad wasn't always so busy. Here, surrounded by colorful drawings and cheerful chatter, she felt like she belonged. Meanwhile, Elliot was completely unaware of the mix-up. At the office, he powered through meeting after meeting, his mind consumed with sales projections and product launches. By noon, he finally had a moment to check his phone. A missed call from Oak Ridge caught his attention, and he frowned as he listened to the voicemail message. "Mr. Carter, this is Principal Matthews from Oak Ridge Academy. We wanted to check in because Lily isn't here today. Could you please confirm her attendance?" Elliot froze, his stomach dropping. His mind raced back to the chaotic morning, the rushed goodbye, the unfamiliar bus stop, the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Panic surged through him as he realized what must have happened. He'd sent Lily to the wrong school. His hands trembled as he dialed Oak Ridge, apologizing profusely and asking for details about where the bus might have taken her. After hanging up, he bolted out of his chair, ignoring the startled looks from his team. For once, work didn't matter. All that mattered was finding his daughter and making sure she was safe. Little did he know, across town, Lily was having the most unexpected yet wonderful day of her life. Elliot's heart raced as he sped through the streets, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The GPS on his phone directed him to Maplewood Elementary, a school he'd never heard of until that very day. His mind was a whirlwind of guilt and worry. How could he have been so careless? He replayed the morning in his head, the hurried breakfast, the forgotten schedule, the distracted hug goodbye. Every detail felt like another weight pressing down on him. When he finally pulled into the parking lot of Maplewood, Elliot jumped out of the car without even turning off the engine. He rushed toward the main entrance, scanning the faces of children playing outside. None of them were Lily. Panic bubbled inside him as he pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped into the quiet hallway. "Excuse me," he called out, spotting a teacher walking past with a stack of papers. "I'm looking for my daughter. Her name is Lily Carter. She might have been dropped off here by mistake." The teacher pointed him toward Ms. Harper's classroom at the end of the hall. As Elliot approached, he heard laughter spilling out from the room. Peering inside, he froze. There was Lily, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a group of kids, her face glowing as she carefully colored a picture of a tree. Standing nearby was a young woman, Ms. Harper, no doubt, leaning over to admire their work. She looked up just then, noticing Elliot standing in the doorway. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Elliot took in the scene, his daughter, smiling brighter than she had in months, surrounded by new friends and guided by this kind-looking teacher. It was a stark contrast to the tense, hurried mornings they usually shared. He felt a pang of guilt, not just for sending Lily to the wrong school, but for missing moments like these because of his relentless focus on work. "Mr. Carter?" Claire asked softly, stepping forward. Her voice brought him back to reality. "You must be Lily's dad." "Yes," Elliot replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. I can't believe this happened. Is she okay?" "She's fine," Claire assured him, her tone calm and reassuring. "She had a great day. We thought maybe she was a transfer student since no one mentioned anything about a mix-up." Elliot sighed deeply, relief washing over him. "Thank you for taking care of her. I don't know what I was thinking this morning. I wasn't thinking at all." Claire smiled gently. "It happens to the best of us. Kids are resilient. And, honestly, Lily fit right in here." Hearing those words made something shift inside Elliot. He glanced at Lily again, who was now chatting happily with the other children. She looked comfortable, confident, and genuinely happy. It was a side of her he hadn't seen in a long time. For years he'd tried to give her the best life possible. Private schools, extracurriculars, everything money could buy. But seeing her thrive in this humble setting made him question whether he'd been focusing on the wrong things. "Owe you an apology, and probably more," Elliot said, turning back to Claire. "This whole situation is my fault. If there's anything I can do to make it up to you or the school, please let me know." Claire hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. You don't owe us anything, but… She paused, her cheeks flushing slightly. If you're serious about helping, maybe we could talk sometime. Over coffee, perhaps. We could discuss ways to support the school. It's always in need of resources. Elliot blinked, caught off guard by the suggestion. He hadn't expected her to be so direct or so intriguing. Coffee sounds good, he said after a beat, managing a small smile. I'll make it happen. As they exchanged polite goodbyes and Elliot led a cheerful Lily back to the car, he couldn't shake the image of Claire from his mind. There was something about her warmth, her patience, the way she connected with his daughter, that lingered long after they left Maplewood behind. For the first time in years, Elliot found himself wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than work and responsibility. Elliot couldn't stop replaying the events of the day in his head as he drove Lily back home. His daughter sat in the passenger seat, chattering excitedly about her adventure at Maplewood Elementary. She talked nonstop about Ms. Harper, the art project they worked on, the stories she told, and how nice everyone had been to her. Elliot listened intently, nodding along while stealing glances at her animated face. It was a side of Lily he hadn't seen in ages, carefree, joyful, and completely unburdened by the pressures of their usual life. But despite Lily's obvious happiness, guilt gnawed at Elliot. He hated that he'd let this happen, even if it turned out okay in the end. As much as he wanted to dwell on his mistakes, though, he kept thinking about Claire. There was something about her calm demeanor and genuine kindness that stuck with him. She wasn't like anyone else in his world. No polished corporate facade, no hidden agendas. Just pure sincerity. And for some reason, that unsettled him in the best possible way. The next morning, after dropping Lily off at her actual school, Oak Ridge Academy, Elliot found himself driving toward Maplewood again. He told himself it was just to follow up, to make sure everything was truly fine and maybe offer some kind of support for the school. But deep down, he knew there was more to it than that. When he arrived, Claire was in her classroom, tidying up supplies from an earlier lesson. She looked up when he knocked on the doorframe, surprise flickering across her face. "Mr. Carter, what brings you here?" "Just checking in," Elliot said, stepping inside. "And, well, I wanted to thank you properly. You really helped. Lily yesterday, she hasn't stopped talking about you." Claire smiled softly, brushing a strand of curly hair behind her ear. "I'm glad she had a good time. She's a sweet girl. And incredibly creative. We had fun together." "She doesn't usually open up like that," Elliot admitted, leaning against a desk. "Not even with me most days. Seeing her laugh like that, it reminded me of how things used to be before." His voice trailed off, but Claire didn't press him to finish. Instead, she gestured around the room. "We try to keep things simple here. No pressure, just encouragement. Sometimes kids need space to be themselves without worrying about expectations." Elliot nodded slowly, looking around at the colorful posters on the walls and the mismatched chairs scattered around the room. It was far from the sleek, modern classrooms at Oak Ridge, yet it radiated warmth and character. "It shows," he said finally. "You've created something special here." They fell into easy conversation, discussing the challenges of teaching, parenting, and balancing responsibilities. Claire spoke passionately about her students and the struggles Maplewood faced due to limited funding. Elliot listened intently, impressed by her dedication and insight. Before he realized it, nearly an hour had passed. "I meant what I said yesterday," Elliot said as he prepared to leave. "If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Seriously." Claire hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Actually, there is one thing. Our library could use new books and our computer lab is practically ancient. If you're serious about helping—" "Consider it done," Elliot interrupted, determination in his voice. "I'll figure something out." As he walked back to his car, Elliot felt lighter than he had in months. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about profit margins or board meetings. Instead, he was imagining ways to make a difference, not just for Claire and her students, but for himself and Lily too. On the drive home, he glanced at the clock and noticed he still had plenty of time before his next meeting. Instead of heading straight to the office, he pulled over at a small cafe he'd passed earlier. Ordering 2 coffees, he jotted down a note. Ms. Harper, thank you for taking care of my daughter and me. Let's continue this conversation soon. He left the drinks on the counter with instructions for the barista to deliver them to Maplewood. As he drove away, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Maybe, just maybe, this accidental detour would lead to something meaningful. For all of them. Over the next few weeks, Elliot found himself making excuses to visit Maplewood Elementary more often than he cared to admit. At first, it was all about logistics, delivering donated books, setting up a meeting with the principal to discuss tech upgrades for the computer lab, or simply checking in on how things were going. But as time went on, he realized his visits weren't just about helping the school anymore. They were about seeing Claire. Each trip gave him a glimpse into a world so different from his own. The classrooms buzzed with energy, filled with kids, who laughed freely and asked endless questions. Teachers like Claire worked tirelessly, pouring their hearts into lessons despite limited resources. It was humbling and inspiring, in a way Elliot hadn't expected. He began to notice little things, the way Claire's eyes lit up when she talked about her students, the patience she showed even when they tested her limits, and the quiet confidence she carried in everything she did. Lily noticed the change, in him too. Dad, why do you keep going to my other school? She teased one evening over dinner, using air quotes around other school. Elliot chuckled, trying to play it cool. I told you I'm helping them out. That's what people do when they make mistakes, remember? Lily said, narrowing her eyes playfully. You sure you're not going because of Ms. Harper? Elliot nearly choked on his water. What? No, of course not, he sputtered, though the blush creeping up his neck betrayed him. Lily giggled, clearly enjoying her dad's discomfort. She's really nice, though. I wish she could teach at Oak Ridge. Her words lingered in Elliot's mind long after their conversation ended. Maybe Lily was onto something. Claire's presence had already started to ripple through his life, reminding him of what truly mattered. Work still demanded most of his time, but now he made an effort to leave the office earlier, spend quality time with Lily, and even sneak in a quick visit to Maplewood whenever he could. Claire, for her part, appreciated Elliot's efforts more than she let on. She saw how much thought he put into every donation, every suggestion, and every interaction. When he surprised the school with brand new tablets for the computer lab, she couldn't help but tease him. You didn't have to go this big, you know. I wanted to, Elliot replied earnestly. Besides, I owe you and the school a lot. This is the least I can do. Their conversations grew longer and more personal each time they met. Claire shared stories about growing up in a small town, her love for teaching, and her dreams of someday starting a community center for underprivileged kids. Elliot opened up about the loneliness of being a single dad, the pressure of running a company, and the guilt he felt for not being there enough for Lily. One afternoon, as they sat together in the empty classroom after school, Claire hesitated before asking, Do you ever feel like you're living 2 separate lives? Like your work self and your home self don't quite match up? Elliot stared at her, stunned by how accurately she'd described his inner conflict. All the time, he admitted quietly. But lately, I've been wondering if maybe I don't have to choose between them. Maybe there's a way to bring those worlds closer together. Claire smiled knowingly. Maybe there is. Their connection deepened with each passing day, but neither rushed it. Both understood that their lives were complicated, his demanding job, her commitment to her students, but neither could deny the comfort they found in each other's company. For Elliot, Claire represented balance and perspective. For Claire, Elliot offered hope that someone from such a different world could still share her values. As autumn leaves began to fall outside the classroom windows, Elliot realized something important. He wasn't just rebuilding Maplewood, he was rebuilding himself. And with Claire by his side, even if only as a friend for now, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Elliot's involvement with Maplewood Elementary didn't go unnoticed. Word spread quickly among the teachers, parents, and even students about the mysterious CEO who kept showing up with donations and ideas to improve the school. At first, people were skeptical. Some whispered that he was just trying to ease his guilt over the mix-up with Lily, while others wondered if he had ulterior motives. But as time passed, it became clear that Elliot's efforts were genuine. He wasn't there for recognition or praise. He was there because he cared. Claire noticed the change in him too. The stressed, distracted man who had walked into her classroom weeks earlier was slowly transforming. His shoulders seemed less tense, his smile came more easily, and he laughed more often, especially when Lily joined him on his visits. It was during one of these trips that Claire suggested they take their partnership a step further. "Why don't we organize a community event?" she proposed one afternoon as they sorted through boxes of donated books. "Something fun for the kids and families, like a fall festival or an art showcase. It'll bring everyone together and show them what we're capable of." Elliot raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You think I'm ready to plan a school event? I barely know how to navigate this place without getting lost." Claire laughed, nudging him playfully. "Don't worry, I'll guide you. Besides, it's not about perfection. It's about connection. And honestly, having someone like you involved might inspire other local businesses to pitch in." Her confidence in him was infectious. Over the next few weeks, Elliot threw himself into planning the festival. He reached out to colleagues, sponsors, and friends, rallying support for Maplewood. Claire handled the creative side, organizing activities like pumpkin painting, storytelling sessions, and a bake sale featuring recipes from the teachers. Together, they made a surprisingly effective team. The day of the festival arrived, and Maplewood buzzed with excitement. Kids ran around with painted faces, parents mingled over slices of pie, and volunteers worked tirelessly to keep everything running smoothly. Elliot stood off to the side, watching the chaos unfold with a mixture of pride and disbelief. This wasn't the polished, high-stakes world he was used to. It was messy, imperfect, and utterly beautiful. Lily tugged on his sleeve, pulling him back to reality. "Dad, come on. You promised to help me win the ring toss." Elliot grinned, letting her lead him to the game booth. As they played together, he caught Claire's eye across the crowded field. She was helping a group of children string beads into bracelets, her laughter carrying over the noise. For a moment, their gazes locked, and Elliot felt something stir inside him, a warmth that had nothing to do with the autumn sunshine. Later that evening, as the festival wound down, Claire approached him with a tired but satisfied smile. "We did it," she said simply. "This was amazing. Thank you." "No, thank you," Elliot replied, shaking his head. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. Honestly, I don't think I've ever felt this grounded before." Claire tilted her head, studying him thoughtfully. "Grounded?" He nodded, choosing his words carefully. "Yeah, like, I've spent so much of my life chasing success, climbing ladders, proving myself. But here, with you and Lily in this school, I feel like I'm finally building something real, something that matters." His honesty caught her off guard, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The weight of his words hung in the air between them, unspoken yet understood. Finally, Claire broke the silence with a soft laugh. "Well, if that's true, then maybe I should start sending you to the wrong places more often." Elliot chuckled, though his heart skipped a beat at her teasing tone. "Careful what you wish for," he joked. "Next time, I might accidentally end up at your house instead of the school." They shared a laugh, but beneath the humor lay a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they'd formed. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't simple, but it was real. And for now, that was enough. As the weeks turned into months, Elliot and Claire's friendship deepened, but it wasn't without its challenges. Their lives were worlds apart, his filled with boardroom meetings, late-night calls, and high-stakes decisions, hers rooted in lesson plans, classroom chaos, and a paycheck that barely stretched to cover rent. The differences between them became harder to ignore, especially when whispers began to circulate. At Maplewood, some teachers raised eyebrows about Claire spending so much time with someone like Elliot, a wealthy CEO who lived in a gated community and drove a luxury car. Isn't he just slumming it for good PR? One colleague joked during lunch, though her tone suggested she wasn't. Entirely kidding. Claire brushed off the comments, but they lingered in the back of her mind, planting seeds of doubt. Was she naive to think their connection could work? Could someone like Elliot ever truly understand her world? On Elliot's side, the scrutiny came from his professional circle. At a company gala, a fellow executive cornered him after noticing photos of Maplewood on social media. "So what's the deal with this school thing?" the man asked, his tone laced with skepticism. "Are you trying to pivot into education reform now? Or is this some kind of personal project?" Elliot bristled at the insinuation but forced a polite smile. "It's nothing fancy," he said evenly. "Just helping out where I can." The man smirked, raising his glass. "Well, good luck keeping your focus. We all know how distracting charity cases can be." The comment stung more than Elliot cared to admit. He tried to shake it off, but it echoed in his thoughts long after the event ended. Was he being reckless? Selfish even? Claire had become someone he genuinely admired and cared about, but their relationship was still fragile. Could they navigate the gap between their two worlds without losing themselves, or each other, in the process? Claire wrestled with her own doubts. One evening, as she graded papers in her small apartment, she found herself staring at an old photo of her family. Her parents had always taught her to value simplicity and authenticity, qualities she saw in Elliot despite his polished exterior. But was she fooling herself by thinking their bond could last? What would happen if his life pulled him away again, leaving her and Lily behind? Their fears came to a head during a rare quiet moment at Maplewood. After hours spent organizing supplies for the next big project, Elliot finally broached the topic. "Claire," he began hesitantly, "do you ever feel like we're setting ourselves up for disappointment?" She looked up, startled by the seriousness in his voice. "What do you mean?" he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I mean, our lives are so different. People talk, you know? They question my intentions, your professionalism. It's not easy. And I don't want to put you in a position where you feel like you have to defend us, or yourself." Claire set down the box she'd been unpacking and crossed her arms. "Do you doubt us?" she asked softly. "No," Elliot replied quickly, meeting her gaze. "But I worry about what happens when reality sets in. You've got dreams that matter, and I've got responsibilities that won't disappear. How do we make this work without losing who we are?" For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Claire stepped closer, her expression softening. "Elliot, relationships aren't about avoiding challenges. They're about facing them together. Yes, we come from different places, but that doesn't mean we can't find common ground. If we care enough to try, maybe that's all that matters." Her words struck a chord deep within him. She was right. They couldn't control what others thought or how their lives might change. But they could choose to trust each other, to keep showing up no matter how hard it got. Determined to prove the doubters wrong, Elliot threw himself into supporting Maplewood with renewed energy, while Claire continued to remind him of the importance of balance. Slowly but surely they began to bridge the gap between their worlds, not perfectly but with hope and determination. And somewhere along the way they realized that love wasn't about finding someone exactly like you. It was about finding someone who made you better, who challenged you to grow, and who believed in the life you could build together, even if it meant taking risks neither of you saw coming. By spring, the bond between Elliot and Claire had grown, stronger than either of them could have imagined. They weren't just two people navigating their differences. They were partners in every sense, working together to create something meaningful. Maplewood Elementary thrived under their combined efforts. The school now boasted a fully updated computer lab, a vibrant library stocked with new books, and a community garden that brought parents and students together. But beyond the physical changes, there was a shift in spirit, a renewed sense of hope and possibility that rippled through everyone involved. For Lily, the transformation was equally profound. She adored spending time at Maplewood, where she'd formed friendships with kids who didn't care about private school uniforms or expensive hobbies. Claire had become a second mother figure to her, someone she trusted and looked up to. And for Elliot, seeing his daughter so happy, and knowing he played a part in it, was worth more than any business deal or promotion. One Saturday morning, as they prepared for another volunteer day at the school, Elliot surprised Claire with tickets tucked into an envelope. "What's this?" she asked, opening it curiously. "It's a weekend getaway," he explained with a sheepish grin. "Just you, me, and Lily. I figured we've earned a break after all this hard work." Claire blinked, stunned. "A getaway? Where?" "A little cabin by the lake," Elliot said. "Nothing fancy, just quiet, fresh air, and plenty of space for Lily to run around. Plus," he hesitated, his voice softening, "I thought it might be nice to spend some time together without distractions. Just us." Tears welled in Claire's eyes as she hugged him tightly. "That sounds perfect." The trip turned out to be exactly what they needed. Away from the pressures of work and school, they laughed, talked, and simply enjoyed each other's company. Lily spent hours skipping stones on the water, chasing butterflies and teaching Claire how to fish, an activity she declared super fun despite catching nothing but algae. For Elliot, watching the two most important people in his life bond over silly games and shared adventures filled him with a joy he hadn't felt in years. On their last evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Elliot took Claire's hand. "I never expected any of this," he admitted quietly. "You, Lily, Maplewood, none of it was part of my plan. But I can't imagine my life without it now." Claire smiled, squeezing his hand. Sometimes the best things come when we stop planning and start living. When they returned home, they faced the same challenges as before: the busy schedules, the skeptical voices, the balancing act of blending their worlds. But something had shifted. They no longer doubted whether they could make it work. Instead, they focused on what mattered: building a life rooted in love, purpose, and connection. Elliot continued to support Maplewood, not because he felt obligated, but because it had become a part of him. Claire inspired him to slow down, appreciate the small moments, and prioritize the people who mattered most. In turn, Claire found strength in Elliot's unwavering commitment, not just to her but to the values they shared. As summer approached, Maplewood hosted its annual end-of-year celebration. Parents, teachers, and students gathered on the lawn, laughing and cheering as awards were handed out. When Lily stepped forward to receive a certificate for outstanding creativity, she beamed at her dad and Claire sitting side by side in the audience. Later that night, as fireworks lit up the sky, Elliot wrapped an arm around Claire and pulled her close. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." She leaned into him, content. "We did this together." And in that moment, surrounded by the community they'd helped build, they knew they'd found something rare and beautiful: a love that bridged worlds, a family that defied expectations, and a future full of endless possibilities.